This is a bad, mean, dirty sound inspired by the underground scene of the 90s, according to its designer, the Greek composer Alex Retsis. Like many of the bass sound examples I gave in this playlist, it uses virtual analog waveforms to give it its classic analog identity. But on top of that, Alex cleverly uses a didgeridoo sample to emphasize the low-frequency dirtiness of the sound, among other tricks. Let's see how. First, the main body. Engine 1 uses virtual analog waveforms, as said before. Actually, it's using three types of waveforms: sawtooth, triangle, and square waves. But Alex also uses pulse width modulation to add some movement to the sound. For that, we'll use macro knob 1 to modulate the triangular and square waves pulse widths, as well as to add some FM modulation. On top of that, the unison feature is used to virtually multiply by 4 the number of sources with significantly detuned voices. So all that brings a lot of harmonics and enharmonics too to play with. The filter architecture is interesting too. It's using filter 1 and 2 in parallel. Filter 1 is a classic low-pass filter. Filter 2, on the other hand, is a low-slope high-pass filter. So by playing with a mix of the two, we can emphasize low or high harmonics at will. Also, each filter is slightly panned to further separate high and low frequencies. We can now focus on Engine 2 and its sample source. As said before, this is a didgeridoo sample. To make this sound more random, we use granular synthesis. I remind you that granular synthesis consists in dividing a pre-recorded sample into small chunks, called grains, and generating more or less randomly playbacks of some of the grains to create interesting sound effects. In Pigments, you can visualize the grains being played in the sample window. As you could hear, the beginning of the sample is recognizable. That may be an artistic choice, but if you want to get rid of it, you can tell the granular engine to always start after the initial part of the recording, like so. The first three settings define the generic parameters of the granular engine, namely the density, which defines the periodicity at which grains will be generated, the grain envelope, which defines the overall amplitude envelope of each grain, here a triangular shape, and the size, in other words, the duration of each grain. The three settings can be fixed, but they can also be modulated, of course. The certain knobs below the fixed parameters define the pseudo-randomness of grains playback and are pretty much self-explanatory. For this sound, we'll use the start knob to define the randomness of the start position just to make sure we don't play the same grains over and over. Let me play around with the density knob. Once you've defined your granular settings, you can make the final sound a bit more dirty by using the beat crush feature, which basically yields to a lo-fi sampler effect by reducing its sampling rates and/or its beat depth. And it's now time to mix the engines, add some glide for overlapping notes, and add the FX stage, where the chorus effect does marvels.